Hello and welcome back to ITWeb TV, live at the Security Summit 2024. I'm joined now by Stephan Krynauw, who's Chief Technology Officer at Snode Technologies. Snode are our partners here at the booth. Stephan, welcome.
Well, nice to meet you, Adrian. I think last year we did the same.
We did,
It's always good to catch up a bit and see where the industry is going.
Yeah, back under the lights again.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's start off with a topic that I guess is kind of more commercial, but we had an interview recently with Christy, who's your co-CEO, and she was talking about the growth of the company and how she's joined to help scale the business, help grow the business. From someone who's been there for a while and someone who's kind of focused on the business and kind of been part of the furniture there, how have you kind of seen that grow? What's been your expectation or your kind of experience rather in working in the business and seeing maybe a change in the people that work in there or the focus of the business?
Yeah, I think it's been very interesting, and I think we've been learning so much from Christy and the members that they've kind of brought on. I think with Snode being a startup, so I joined probably 6 months after that, so building from scratch and having almost nothing in place, so now having to almost grow up in a sense. I'd say we're an established business now. The technology has been running in the wild for 6-7 years. And I think we're confident about what we can deliver and the value that we can provide for our customers via our solutions. So SOC services, vulnerability assessments, and compromise assessments. But now the difficult part is how do you take that to the next level, reaching wider, because I think we can do it effectively for the companies that we're currently running with, for our customers. But now, how do we grow up? And I think to take that next step is building in rock solid processes, getting those efficiencies in place. And the most important thing for us is keeping the quality as high as we have been delivering for our customers. That's the most important part, because I think at the end of the day, we want to really provide the solution to our customers, not just come in and say, it's a checkbox, now you've got a SIEM, you've got NDR, you've got a SOC, but really solve their cyber problem. Okay. And in order to do that, there's a lot of touch points, and it's lots of human touch points in order to really make sure that we protect them and lower their threat surface.
And I know one thing Christy was saying was like a change that she's going to have to kind of not drill into you guys, but like maybe a mental shift is you used to give stuff away for free. You used to do a lot for your clients without necessarily charging for it. And obviously, like everyone understands that businesses rely on cash. So how have you found that kind of shift? Is that anything else that she's kind of brought in?
No, I think it's a good show. Look, we've always known that you have to charge stuff because, we need to hire people. And if we don't have enough people, we don't have the capacity to continuously deliver what we want to do. But it's also quite hard sometimes because a business, you can see that they have a need. They've just been compromised. Guys are very stressed. People don't really know what to do. You get a call. You just want to jump in and help, and then solve that problem. And you really build a good relationship with those people because you've been in the fire with them. Yeah. But they're not necessarily the guys that sign the checks at the end of the day. So then 6 months, 12 months down the line, now, all that work was done, and it didn't actually at the end of the day come to you, but you were the ones to take them through that journey. But I think also it's part of the course of being a smallish, newish company is we still had to build our reputation. We had to gain trust of our customers and just people within the industry. I think that's still a continuous journey. I don't think it's done, and I don't think it'll ever be done. Okay. But we'll keep moving on that. But now it's easy because you just hand the discussion to the bean counters and let them do that. I think like myself, Nathan, Dwayne, I'm a techie. I know Nathan is very much a techie. Dwayne geeks out on his governance and his framework, in that space. But again, we want to just solve problems. Yeah. But as a business growing up, we have to also take into account the impact that does have to the business.
Sure. Okay, cool. One of the other things as well that Snode's been helping at the Security Summit with is the hackathon. Yes. Now, I know you guys are very actively involved and have been for a number of years. Yeah. What have you seen so far in the hackathon, and we had one of the Steve Jump in earlier, and he was kind of giving us a bit of an overview. But what have you seen? What have you seen the solutions they're developing, the kind of the passion, the innovation, what's going on?
No, I think I love it. I think everywhere we come and you just see how quickly young people can adapt as well. Some of them, this is the first time ever that they're trying to compromise or trying to write an exploit or getting a taste of this, and seeing how quickly or how much they can achieve in such a short space of time. So I know this year we're only running the hackathon. The Ideathon ran about a month or two ago, I believe. Last year we did both, but just the projects that came out of that Ideathon was incredible. Like anomaly detection, some machine learning. We've actually got 4 interns that so 3 of them won last year's Ideathon. They're still with us today in different parts of the business, working, still learning and skilling up. One of the engineers is now one of our machine learning engineers because we saw him here last year as well. So it's an excellent place for us to also just look at the talent that's available and just give an opportunity. I think we, as South Africans and as a South African business, our passion is really to position ourselves and South Africa as a whole as almost a cyber hub. And if we can become a cyber powerhouse, number one for ourselves, so South Africa, but then also for Africa, I think the discussion is getting quite wide in terms of data sovereignty and governance, to have South African eyes watching South African data, or having South African technology protecting South African infrastructure. But then the same for Africa. If you're dealing with Zambia, with Namibia, Ghana, everybody is coming to the realization that data is it's ours, it's oil. We need to make sure that we keep our data safe, and also be aware that some of this can get exfiltrated and used against us. So let's make sure that we protect ourselves.
I think one thing, again, that's kind of come up, and the skills conversation I'm sure will keep rolling on for many years. But one thing that's come up is you've got the guys with the certifications, the guys with they go to a hackathon, they've maybe come out of university, they've maybe got a few certificates from various kind of institutions. But then industry kind of demands a certain level of experience.
Yes.
And yet there's this kind of gap in the middle. And I think if you're taking that raw talent and then helping them, I think that's a great kind of step. And obviously, I hope more companies will do that. But I think there's obviously an issue there that you're kind of putting these guys in. It just takes one breach for something to happen. So how do you kind of give them that experience and kind of let them, I don't know, take them on to give them that experience?
Yeah, so I think we try as much as possible to give them the opportunity to fail, in a sense. I think as we take it through the journey, especially on the SOC side, is you've got analysts that are either coming straight out of varsity or coming straight out of high school. But they've got a passion for computers or a passion for IT, but they don't necessarily have the work experience yet. And then what we're trying to do there is give them that exposure. So generally they will then come in as an L0 analyst, in a sense. They will be doing job shadowing or almost working in a pair with a current established L1 analyst. That gives them the opportunity to learn on the job, but then also to fail, in a sense. And we've got good customers which allows us to, we'll ask them first, is this fine with you if we put an L0 analyst, and let them starting to engage with the first responders on the customer side, knowing that, look, let's maybe just wait for another person to verify that the finding is valid. But that's the kind of skills that we have to teach our people. But I think in cyber it's a difficult space because you've got different tiers of experience. So you have people, and probably the best security analysts come from like a systems administration space, a networking space, where they've now kind of seen how does enterprise networks actually work, and now how to secure them and why it's important, because there's a lot of context that you glean from that. But then you've got the other side where people go on the track of certifying. So they go and certify maybe N+, A+, Security Plus, and then some of the CompTIA certifications, but they don't work in the space. So they're getting certified in order to get a job, but they never get the opportunity to get that hands-on experience.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we give people the opportunity to just at least live in that space and also learn it.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So let's talk a bit about the threat landscape. I think that's what we originally kind of agreed, and I've sidetracked us. So how do you think that's changed over, say, the past few months? And what impact do you think, I mean, everyone's talking about AI, but what impact do you think AI has, and I guess more specifically generative AI?
Just I think the threat landscape, the more it kind of changes, the more it stays the same. You kind of have like large vendors, there's vulnerabilities, people are scanning for those vulnerabilities and they're trying to exploit. I think in South Africa specifically, we've seen a very big uptick in like these opportunistic ransomware groups, where they're not necessarily some of the established ones, but they buy ransomware for hire, you buy credentials off the dark web, and now opportunistically they go and try to exploit. So they're using almost old technology in a sense, but because we are, as a country, I think, on average, not as mature as maybe Europe, US, and other regions, they're still coming right with those exploits. So that's one interesting one, because I mean, some of the attacks that are successful is it's 2 or 3 year old vulnerabilities that get exploited.
Yeah. And
then also it's ransomware that's out there, it's known, but it's still effective if you don't have the right controls in place. So that's one of the interesting parts. But with AI, it's also changed a bit, where now I think the time to life for new malware or for malware to get recompiled or to get built is a lot shorter. And it also, the barrier to entry for someone is also lower, because they can now use this generative AI model to ask it a few questions and it builds almost a proof of concept script for them that they can go and try. And they'll try it and say, this works, or it doesn't work, and then work on it a little bit. So it is, I think it's impacted the industry, but probably not yet to the extent that kind of was feared or was expected.
Okay. And you mentioned these kind of more opportunistic, kind of old-fashioned attacks.
Yes.
Do you know where they're coming from? Are they kind of elsewhere in Africa, or are they coming from, I don't know, parts of Asia? Or
it's very difficult at this stage to narrow it down, because you can spin up a virtual machine in Azure or AWS or any of these private or public clouds at the drop of a hat, and you come from anywhere.
Sure.
So it is difficult to narrow them down. One thing that we found is about 2 or 3 years ago, there was actually a syndicate operating in Pretoria that was ransoming a few businesses here.
Locally?
Locally, okay. Yeah. So I think it's more local than we think, but it's very hard to put your finger on and say, yeah, they are, because they just proxy via wherever, and you don't really know. But just from the methods that they are starting to use, and the way that like phishing has also enhanced, it's coming from a South African context, knowing how to exploit South Africans specifically, or knowing what kind of pushes our buttons more than would be global buttons. So I think the expectation is that it's come a lot closer to home than it has in the past. Okay,
that's interesting. Because in my head, I always think cyber is borderless. So, and I've kind of listened to things, and they talk about North Korea and they talk about China, and you kind of assume that it's generally coming from foreign countries. Yeah. But actually, the fact that they're coming from locally, and as you say, they'll have a better idea of what pushes our buttons, what we're kind of aware of.
Yes.
Oh, this is from SARS, and of course, you know, it's
what's very topical
from your revenue service, or and phishing. I mean, that's obviously something that's still going on. And deepfakes. I mean, I think I'm going to be the third person that's talked about it in the past couple of days. Yeah. But the case with Arab, where they were kind of scammed with a deepfake, saying it was CFO in a video call, $25 million, and like handed it all over. But those are obviously still vulnerabilities that are hard for organizations to overcome. The human element is perhaps the weakest element. How do you think we solve the human problem?
I think it's like with phishing and deepfakes, I think it's not just a human problem. There's definitely a very big technology component on it. So at the moment, you can detect deepfakes in certain measures, and you can also, like, phishing is also becoming more and more difficult to detect from a human aspect. But to solve the human problem, again, it's just to train them, so making them aware that these things can happen. But also, I think something that humans don't always, or that people don't always consider if they don't work in the industry, is understanding the context of a mail or of a deepfake. For example, I think we get phished so often, or attempted phishing against us so often, and it will usually be maybe an email that's spoofing our CEO Nathan, that's asking maybe one of the SOC analysts if he can quickly help Nathan with some task. Nathan doesn't send those mails to them. It will go via somebody to get to them. Mm-hmm. So understanding just the context and the general flow of something happening, and I think if somebody asks you a question to do something for them that they never ask you, so ask yourself that rather than looking at what the content of the message is. Because in the past it was quite easy. There would be spelling mistakes. There would be, the grammar would be wrong. Yes. These days that's not, the spelling, they can even go and train a model to speak like you or like me, and it's becoming harder and harder to detect on that. But look at the context of what is getting asked, and then see. But I mean, with deepfakes, it's getting hard.
There was a survey I saw, and I can't remember the exact statistics, but it was basically, I think it was a Sophos survey from last year, and they were saying that actually cyber criminals weren't using generative AI as often as they thought.
Yes.
But yeah, it's still kind of, I mean, is that your experience? Are they using it, do you think, or?
I think there's a component to it, but probably, again, the impact hasn't been as big as it was feared. Like I think when ChatGPT just released, there was this massive upheave of, okay, what is this? What's the impact going to be? But the threat landscape, like, things have kind of stayed the same in a sense, but I think they are leveraging it to just enhance their attacks this little bit. So there's not new attacks, but the attacks are better. The past attacks are now better and more refined than they were.
Okay. On the subject of AI, and obviously you guys specialists in SOCs, I got some fascinating socks yesterday. Different sort of socks. How's AI being leveraged in security operations centers for monitoring, detection, and response?
I think it's getting leveraged across the entire stack. So I think from detection, even running proof of concept like exploits or malware, so then building your detections out, so enhancing your detection capability, you leverage it there. But I think it's still very much there to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So at the moment, AI, like how we use it and what we're kind of building at the moment is, how do we have our systems correlate all this data? So I think in the world today, the amount of data is just, it's exorbitant. Like, you're talking billions of data points every day that's coming in. And a human analyst, if you give nice graphs, yes, you can draw correlations between the data. But if you're expecting an analyst to do this across 10 or 20 different data sets, it just starts getting mangled.
Yeah.
So I think where AI is very good and where they play very well still is training them on things that you have seen in the past and now repetitively and accurately completing those specific tasks. AI is not there yet where it's doing things that we have not taught it. There's very few examples where people have actually gone and an AI being a real AI where it has now surpassed the human in that specific department.
Sure.
So we very much leverage AI to assist and enhance our analysts. So give them a better view, deduplicate data, highlight like more important anomalies or events. And then also, because again, we're from South Africa, a lot of our analysts, maybe English is not their first language. I mean, me as an Afrikaans speaking person, like my English is quite good, but it's definitely not at a level if you want to speak to a British citizen or to an American.
A British citizen, you're doing well.
Yeah, but I mean, now what we can do is we can leverage AI to cross that language barrier. So it is very good at the moment in like just almost taking a paragraph for you and rewriting it in very professional English.
Yeah.
So we're starting to leverage it like that with generating professional descriptions for certain events and remediation advice, because in cyber, there's key components or context that you need to get across, which changes the severity of an incident or of an event. So we're using AI for that, but then the human still checks it. So it's getting there, but we definitely still require the human analyst to just give that input, either saying yes or no, this is correct, or saying, okay, no, you're just on the wrong track. Just let me assist you in this way.
Okay. And then attack path modeling. That's something that I've never come across before, but I know you guys are specialists in it. What is it, and how does it kind of fit with, say, threat hunting and CTEM?
So it's a new concept that we are like we're not playing with it. I think we're probably at the end phase of now developing this. But the idea behind it is to, instead of going in and testing or trying to secure the whole environment, because at the moment, like the threat landscape and the threat surface of customers have grown so wide, and usually what happens is if you've got so many places to focus and there's not enough people or not enough hands to do the work, you end up doing the wrong or not the most important thing. Sure. So what attack path modeling is going to do for us is it models like a million attacks on a customer network. So based off of the vulnerability data that we've got of the customer, the threat data, so what attacks are they seeing, and based off of their asset landscape, we run all these different models to say, if I was an attacker, based off of the data that I'm seeing, the following 3 or 4 paths are the easiest way to compromise this customer or to get to a critical asset on the customer's landscape. And then we can assist our customer to say, let's just go and patch or fix these 4 things. And once they've done that, we run it again, and then we fix the next 4 things. Okay. So now we've got a very nice, it's a gap assessment that we're running continuously across the entire estate, and doing that in real time. So that also will then allow us to react to threats a lot better and a lot quicker and with more context.
Okay. And which problems does that address, do you think?
I think it addresses just the human source shortage on the one side, so helping us prioritize the work that we are doing. And it also helps us to just, again, stop attackers in a more dynamic way. When you look at like the old ways of working, so your firewall has lists of IPs that it has to block across the globe. I think where it's becoming now is you're a lot more dynamic, because there's just so much, and if you put that whole IP space on your firewall, you almost start using it, you're overutilizing it because it has to go through the same block list. But if you can reactively and dynamically, if we see this, then we block it. So you're a lot more dynamic in your actions.
Okay. And are there any challenges, any drawbacks with doing this?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I think where not necessarily drawbacks, but just different ways of doing.
Sure.
I think in the same way that a pen test, you have a human conducting a penetration test. So they'll go out and it's in the eye of the beholder. If I'm running the pen test, I use my experience. I use my intuition to see how do I get from point A, where I'm starting, to taking over maybe the domain controller, which is usually the prize at the end of the day. If you can compromise that, you've compromised the system. And that's where a pen tester always wants to go. But with attack path modeling, what we want to do is simulate all of their scenarios in order for them, how will they get there? So I think if you combine the two, it'll actually give you a better understanding of the true reflection of what this company's threat posture is.
So again, it's like combining the human and the system, the AI system.
Yeah, I think it's something that I think at Snode we really believe in, is that AI is there to elevate us. It's like Google. At the start of Google, still now, it has enabled us to reach so much information, but it's still up to you how you use it. And AI is, at the moment, it's a tool in our arsenal. It's not the end all be all. My strategy for risk is to run AI simulations and it'll fix me. But really, what does it give me? Let's interpret it, and then let's go and apply that across the board.
Okay. Stephan, that's been great. That's been fantastic. Awesome. Hopefully we'll see you here next year.
Yeah, I know, for sure.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Stephan Krynauw, Chief Technology Officer for Snode Technologies.